Welcome to Startup Grind. My name is Patrice Perkins, and this is Startup Grind, Capital Region, New York. I'm so excited to be talking to you again today. We've got a great guest this morning. For those of you who may not know, Startup Grind is a global startup community. We are in about 600 cities. We're in about 125 countries, and our goal is to educate, connect entrepreneurs, people who are interested in business, and we do that through these fireside chats. We also have many events, and I am so excited to have my friend, my colleague of many years, Jens Wernborg. He is the chapter director for Hong Kong and Sweden, and he has been managing those chapters for many years. We're going to hear quite a bit from Jens today on our topic, which is business tips for 2024, from generative AI to global sales. Jens, it's great to have you here. Great to have you with us.
Thank you for having me. Great to be with you.
So let's talk a little bit about, you have the unique privilege. We don't have many chapter directors that are operating more than one chapter in Startup Grind. And for years, you've been seamlessly running. Can you just talk a little bit about how that happened, how you came to be the director for two chapters, and how that's evolved for you over the years?
Yeah, so I started with Startup Grind in 2016. And like many others, I started just to go to the events. And then Keith Ng, who was running Startup Grind Hong Kong, saw that I was there. And he said, hey, would you like to help out a bit? You can fix pizza and beer or check people in. And I said, happy to do that. And that was a great start. I mean, each one of those talks, we learned so much. And then during COVID, what happened was that there was a vacancy in Startup Grind Stockholm. So I was asked if I could sort of restart that chapter. So we ran a few events, and then we recruited, we interviewed, and then Naimul Up came in to become the Startup Grind director for Stockholm. So I'm still mentoring them, but it's the same questions that comes up. Hong Kong and Stockholm is the same thing, finding investors and how do I start up and all that. So yeah, global community.
It's a global community, and the issues that come up with businesses are global, and they're similar. The logistics, the nuances may be different, but the basic same types of questions that companies have, almost regardless of the size that they have. So I definitely want to hear. I want you to share a little more about who you are in business, but I know we've got about 30 minutes that we're going to ask some questions here. So I'm going to go ahead and start with a little bit of the questions about that we have here, and then hopefully at the end we'll have time to circle back around and hear more about you and an exciting new partnership that you are embarking on. So for those who we hear the word AI, it invokes fear in some. Many people have been early adopters of it, have been excited about it. We really, as a society, have been using some form of AI for, adopted it and didn't even realize exactly what it is. But we hear so many different types. Explain about the generative AI, what that is. Let's just start there at a baseline.
Sure. Yeah. So the word AI came out, I think it was 1955. And it was back then they thought that maybe they could basically mimic what a human brain did with computers, or with those early primitive circuitry. Now, I would say if we fast forward to about 10, 15 years ago, that's when we started to get the what you can sort of narrow AI, when AI helped us make selections. I mean, when we look for a movie on Netflix, or when YouTube suggests something for us, that's very much an AI which is optimized on a single result to maximize the number of minutes that you watch or the products that you click on. And then maybe you say 10 years ago, we also started to the image recognition, that we could distinguish cats, dogs, and so on. And that has, of course, taken us to self-driving cars that we can now. Right. So all of that is AI, where you input something and you get a certain result. What generative AI, which 2017, the invention of the transformers that Google published and that we could do parallel processing on text. That was the foundation for generative AI. So generative AI, as it generates, it creates. So you give it something short and you get a lot back. While
Right.
if you look at the older AI, it would you gave it a picture a lot and you gave one result saying cat. So you could almost see it like a funnel that the traditional AI is super fast. It's still very much relevant, but it was also very costly. So you had to be a big company to do something. With the generative AI, it is like it's expanding, but you can still feed that generative AI a picture of a cat and it will tell you it's a cat. So now also smaller businesses can do what was before just available to large companies. But I would say think of it as like you give it something small, you get something big back, a picture, a text. That's a generative part.
And it's going to give you something big back. And when we look at you gave a nice retrospective of kind of how it started, and like most computer things, huge. Everything was huge, and you had to have quite a thick pocketbook to be able to use it. That's not the case anymore.
Nope.
Now, what are some of the changes? The thing about AI is it almost daily. I think even the last conversation that we had, we chatted the turnover so changed. So talk about some of the changes that we've seen recently. And again, some of those things that might be, again, the how to keep up with that.
Yeah, and how to keep up. So there is this great YouTuber, Matt Wolf, who is constantly doing videos about AI, and he just did one AI in 2023. And so he started on the first day of 2023 and just sped through the whole of 2023. And basically everything that we know of and basically everything that relates to us as businesses or startups happened in 2023. Yes, the transformers came in 2017 and there was ChatGPT 3.0 or 2.0 and so on before, but that wasn't really useful for us. So I think the way to think about it is now possible to be in the forefront, because the only thing, but what you have to learn has happened in the last 12 months. It's not that you have to go back 10 years.
Sure.
And that's the same feeling I have when we started with when crypto came to Hong Kong in 2016. I would say that's when it actually took off here. Yes, Bitcoin had been around for a number of years, but nobody knew about it. So it was one of these, this and that was these opportunities where you are in the forefront of when things are happening, and you don't have to say, oh, I wish I was there, 5 years back. No, you can be here and now, and you can see how you can use generative AI in your business, and not only to distinguish cats and dogs, but also generate code and so on. So yeah, it's 12 months. That's what it is. And that's what's fascinating and interesting.
So what are some of the considerations if I'm a business, and if you can give a perspective, or kind of looking if I'm a smaller business and or if versus the larger companies which already really kind of had the access, how would I be able to use this?
Yeah, so let's take a smaller business example just from this last weekend. So my girlfriend, she's running a travel agency. It's been around for almost 70 years, founded by her father. And she's now going into her next financial year. So she was talking to me this week, and she said, I need to book basically 52 office meetings once per week. I need to create 52 agendas. I need to have dates. All of these things need to be in there. And that's it is not only clicking 52 times to do that. It's not the most fun task. So I said, well, why don't we ask ChatGPT if it can automate this in some way? So we just went to ChatGPT and said, okay, we would like to take one Word document, and we would like you, ChatGPT, to replace and have the correct starting date. At the top of the document should be one date, at the bottom it should be next meeting. And we said, can you do that? They said, sure. It told us this is the code that you should run on your computer in Python. And so she installed Python on her laptop and tested it. And yes, it generated 52 agendas. Then we thought, well, maybe it can also book those meetings. So we asked, can you book the meetings? It did book the meetings, even added the other people. And it also added the link then to their common, in their case, SharePoint, but you could have a Google Drive. So it just added a link to the invite for every meeting. So the actual generation of 52 agendas and 52 meetings and 52 links and 52 invites in time was a few minutes. Yes, it took us a few hours to ask ChatGPT to do this, but next weekend or the next time she comes up and says, oh, I need to do something 10 or 15 or 20 times, she will just go to ChatGPT and says, do this. And that's the great thing. You don't need any, you don't need to have a computer science background to try that, because it will very nicely tell you step by step, do this. And then you as a small business can be very productive very fast.
Right. And so that sounds like the time savings that it can give. I mean, already that's going to put a smaller business ahead of the game in being able to do these repetitive tasks. So, what are also, as we look at some of the concerns that businesses and individuals have, because again, there's that thing between, I don't want to be left behind, I want to take part, but I'm a little bit nervous, and this, we've watched the Terminator movies, right? And we don't want us to see Skynet happening. We hear this concern about everything being open. So what are some of those challenges, concerns that a business owner might consider with generative AI?
Yeah, so when it comes to, you should never put anything confidential in those online chat tools. And in this case, we didn't need to. We just wanted it to generate code to run locally on the computer to generate those invites. And I think that's where, just as you would not put anything on Facebook or on Twitter, then you shouldn't put it there as well. But look at this as a tool that enables you to do something repetitive. Another thing that we did was we also looked, can it write some code to extract all the historical email addresses? No problem, it did that. So yet again, you don't need to have a computer science background to do this, and it's very, very helpful. So as long as you do that and run the code locally, you're not giving away anything. Now, what I think people should be, I mean, as your own business owner, you often know what you want your business to do. So it is maybe in these slightly larger organizations where the top management and middle management needs to be both encouraging and also sort of restrictive in the sense, how can we use things? And it's good to have a basic framework and explain that, yes, we can do this to make a social media post. We can make this to use this to summarize a PDF document of instructions, but it's not okay to upload an employment contract, for example.
Right.
And as an individual business owner, I don't think you would do that, but that's how.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to speak over you, but so it's a combination of common sense guidelines, what you would normally do. It also sounds, the common sense things, like you say, anything you wouldn't want someone else to have access to, anything that's confidential, you want to. And it sounds like the other thing, as you were spending the time, you and your girlfriend were spending the time creating, is the prompts. That it's to be thoughtful and in creating because it's almost like with the old computer term GIGO, right? Garbage in, garbage out. And I would imagine it's very similar with AI. It's going to give you've got to have. So how does one go about trying to craft or learning about how to craft the prompts to get what you need?
So we just used basic plain English and said, we have a Word document and we want this. And the first time we ran the code, of course, it didn't work. But I just said to her, hey, paste that error message back in. Did that. And now we gave a new version. Paste the next error message. And then it figured it out. So you didn't and you didn't need to do any editing. And this is This is less than 1 year ago. I would say this is probably 6 months ago that this was available with ChatGPT 4. So it is when you do that and you just realize, well, it gives an individual business owner so many more hours a day to do stuff.
To do the thing you do best.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So I want to shift a little bit and talk about the global sales
Yeah.
aspect. Talk about, how is it transforming? How is AI transforming the global sales and the marketing strategies? How have you found that to work out?
Well, it's really good at translation, and it's really good at writing things in, and when I've used it for a number of different translations, what I normally do is that I translate and say from English to Chinese or from English to Spanish, and then I
Mm-hmm.
go to Google Translate and I translate back. And then I check, do I actually get the same message as I put in the first time? And that way you kind of have a double check, because if you don't know what
Yeah.
it says.
Right.
And we did that. So a friend of mine here had an article a medical article in traditional Chinese, and we
Mhm.
fed it both to ChatGPT and to Google Translate. And I asked him which one was best. And that it was the ChatGPT version that was
Wow.
both were accurate.
Mm-hmm.
They were accurate, but it was just that the one from ChatGPT was a little bit smoother in its yeah. The English was more it was
Okay.
more joyful to read it. You can say that. So
Yes.
when whenever, because it is predicting, also not only translating but also predicting what would be in the normal language as the next word, while the translation, being correct, might have opted for words that were not as common.
Right.
So
Right.
therefore, if you go back to this question of marketing, if you have any form of e-commerce company selling internationally
Mhm.
or domestically, also in the US, you now have the option here to create marketing material that goes for specific groups. And
Right.
and as I said, and the trick here is, so the you you say, this is my Facebook post, I want the same Facebook post in Spanish, and then before you post it, you go back and run it through Google Translate to double check that it actually turned out
Say what and that is the key, because there's always the colloquialisms, and within the languages, those certain things that a native is going to say, wait a minute, we wouldn't say it that way,
Hmm.
and to be able to detect that it is not. So another question would be, again, cultural and ethical considerations when it comes to, especially culture to culture, international to international. How can someone or a company try to ensure that they're,
Yeah.
getting what they want?
Yes, and so there are nowadays many more models than just ChatGPT or Claude or Google's models. So there is a place called Hugging Face. And Hugging
Hmm.
Face is a community online where you have all its free models that you can download. And there is now, since I think 3 weeks or 4 weeks, a
Hmm.
model trained in the Nordic languages, Swedish, Norwegian, Danish, and Icelandic. And it has been made with a specific purpose that those languages are different, and you have a different culture. So it needs to, in order to enable companies to use it, but also to make sure that you get as accurate answer as possible. So it's a project sponsored by a big company, and they've sponsored this. So I would also say, look for those models that are not English only. But I would say that for English, ChatGPT works very well for me, but it does speak Swedish if I wanted to,
Yeah.
and it does it really well.
Right.
So yeah,
So
but but check out Hugging Face if you're really interested in AI and you would like to find local models that are made in your particular language and trained on sort of your books and so on. Then go and find it there.
and is it when we go to Huggy Face, hugging, is it Huggy Face?
Hugging,
It is Huggy.
hugging face. Yeah, it's the logo is that emoji, the Hugging Face logo.
It's of the Hugging Face. Are you, so you really want to go in there and search. You don't necessarily want to just use a generic one. You really want to try to, it's a great place to go to find, you mentioned that there are several models, to have a chance to just kind of take a look and see what it is that's going to work best for your own application.
Yes, and there are big models and small models and all that, but it's a community and everybody's helping each other. And of course, there are also a lot of good YouTuber. There's a guy named Matthew Berman. He makes really good YouTube videos explaining exactly how to set it up locally on your computer and download from Hugging Face. So I think that it is, as I said, we're just 12 months into this. So we will get local models that cater more to the local flavor. And again, back then to that question about global sales, you will find models that are appropriate to make a marketing text for different places. But if it's not available today, and somebody could make something tomorrow.
Somebody's gonna. So in other words, keep your eyes out. And what would you say if you were going to give? You gave a really nice example of a personal use. It was a business use, but a very simple way to kind of automate some tasks. What would you say, as we're looking at the global sales question, and we looked at some of the ways from how it can be applied for marketing? What would be another example that you could use that someone might think of as a use case of why, yeah, this is something that I want to kind of look into and I think would be helpful that you have found?
Well, we should not look at ChatGPT as a sort of a replacing Google, for example. It's not a search tool, but it does allow you to ask about, let's say I would like to sell a product to Italy, and you could ask questions and say, well, what would be a suitable way to do that? And yes, we often hear about something called cut-off date. That means that after that date, it doesn't know certain things. But if you want to sell, a pasta sauce to Italy, it's not the last 12 months that you're looking for. You're perfectly fine with the information. So then you just ask, and then you can sort of ask, what would be good ways to get into the market? Should I use a franchise? Should I use a distributor? And you use the ChatGPT or the AI as a sounding board. You're basically asking questions like, what should I do? And then you can, of course, go into detailed question and say, okay, I need to export this from the US. I need to send it to Europe, to Italy. What should I consider? What everything from logistics to customs and all that. Now, the latest custom duty information, of course, is not available there, but it can then tell you where you should go and look. And then you can work, then you can work with your logistics. And the thing is, when you approach your logistic company and say, hey, I want to sell this to Italy, the more you know, the better customer you become.
Sure.
And the more that you don't either over purchase something that you don't need, and it's also you know it. So it's a good way to train yourself. And I think there are many more ways to use it than we think of, and it's easy to forget about it. But you could basically say, well, I'm gonna, there is a negotiation trainer. It will help you negotiate. If you're going to go to the bank and have a loan or buy a car, you can say, hey, what questions should I ask, and how do I?
The more general question. So it really, I love what the reference of a sounding board, because it's true. Sometimes you're not sure even to say, what are the questions? Sometimes we're not even sure what the questions are. That's not just, with AI, that's generally speaking. Another concern that we often hear in a macro sense about AI is the AI versus the human worker, the concerns about, what are some of the trends that we can expect to see in terms of AI and human workers that are going to evolve in the coming years?
I think it's important for any management to help to augment, to help anyone who does a repetitive task to see, can we make it less repetitive, or you can do it faster, so you can spend more time on the more sort of the developing or thinking ahead. So the way to describe AI right now is it's like a very fast college graduate. It does things very fast. You have to be fairly specific when you tell it what to do, as the case with, I want you to make 52 documents.
Right.
So you have to tell like the number of and so, but then it will do that. So of course depends on where you are in any workplace. But
Sure.
as a manager, it is not, AI doesn't replace people, but it can
Right.
make certain tasks much quicker. And one thing to think about is also that, let's say that you write a text and you only have one sample, and you're going to say if this a good text or not a good text. That can be hard. But
Hmm.
if you ask it and generates 3 different versions, you can
Right.
then choose the one that you like. And
Right.
I think that's another thing that also people say, like you write a letter. If you work at the bank, you write a letter, then you ask it, can I give me an alternative version? And that
Right.
comparing often makes things better. And you say, oh, well, that was not a bad idea
Right.
here. Actually, I should pick that
And
up. So
bits and pieces.
your quality improves.
Right. The overall quality. So, as a business leader, what are some of those? What are the skills and knowledge to kind of be up to date, to be able to use this technology effectively, and really to kind of stay ahead? So it's always about not being left behind.
Yeah. And as I said, it seems everything has happened during the last 12 months.
Hmm.
Since it doesn't require you to have you don't need any computer science background to use it.
Right. Right.
So it's gone from this that you needed to be an AI expert, maybe 3 years ago, to
Right.
now you just need to have a general interest in it.
Hmm.
And if you have an interest in it and you start to see those positive effects on your business, because suddenly you could get all those emails that you were looking for, or you could do this,
Hmm.
that's when so without too much effort, you can actually kind of catch up to what's important in January 2024. And as I said, when during this weekend when we did this task, you don't need to have a computer science background or anything today to use it. And that
Hmm.
means that any person, any running their own business,
Hmm.
or any middle management can try the tools.
And I think you kind of answered my next question, which was kind of like the impact on employment and skills, upcoming. Really, if you're looking from the perspective of, I'm kind of interested in this, I want to know more about this, I want to know, the tips that you're giving really are applicable not just for those who are in business and business leaders, but really just, man on the street who wants to know more about this technology.
Yeah, and I would say that if you're managing a baseball team, you I don't know how many people are in, like 25. If you
Yeah.
have, like, if you're gonna do something 25 times, or send
Sure.
out these 25 letters, or do this,
Right.
then you suddenly realize, that's not a bad idea. Or you are gonna have start with the things that it also makes it fun. And I would say that's where I started in March last year when I first tested it. It was like, can I make a
Right.
recipe? Can I do this? Yeah, it started there. And then suddenly quickly it's like, oh, we can do this as well, and can summarize things. So you can start with something outside your professional, but where there is some form of something is repeated again and again. And then you just I use it also to proofread emails. I write an email to a customer support and let
Hmm.
ChatGPT take a look at it before I send it off. And then it often tells me, oh, if you formulate it this way, it's more clear. And that's what I
Ah,
want. I want a
right.
clear question to the customer support. So it does
Absolutely.
that. And the free version does that for you really well. And you
Hmm.
just then get better customer support. So
Right.
there's not much to lose.
So what would you, we're kind of coming to the near the 30-minute point, and I see we've got some folks that have joined us. What do you want to leave people with as they're looking at this topic, especially as it again relates to global sales, to marketing? What is it important for people to know?
Well, so the same way as most people today have a Facebook account, you should try to get a free ChatGPT 3.5 account. Or if you want to try, you go for Microsoft and their Copilot. So try the free version. I mean, there's no harm in signing up. And then just ask it some questions that are non-business related, just to get a figure out how it works. As I said, recipes, do this, do that. And then you start to say, well, maybe I can use it for this in my free time task too. But quite quickly you will find that, oh, it could also write for your business social media post or automate things. And when you get into that automation part, it will actually help you to say, okay, you need to install Python. Okay, you do that, and it tells you those step by step. So it helps us become productive. And then if you're a business and today you're serving a certain community or certain area, then let's say that you can say, okay, there might be more people within that community that I could address if I changed the language I did 2 different languages. Or there might be people further away that I can now reach if I could also make a version for this city or that city, or as we talked about, Italy across the sea. So ask it, and it will also tell you if you say, hey, give me a business plan to grow my business, it will give you suggestions. And I think we're all free to choose which advice we want to follow. But it's much easier to say, no, I don't like point number 6 on that list, and you don't do that one, rather than not knowing up to number 5. So I would say it just gives you more options. It's like a sounding board that you ask questions, and
and give you an opportunity to get some perspectives that you might not be able to access internally. Sometimes it's good to have a set of outside eyes, so to speak, and like you say, to be able to ask some questions. So this has been great. This has been wonderful. Just trying to see if there's questions that folks may have, or if people want to reach you. I know you've got chat a little bit about your new partnership and what you're doing in addition to outside of Startup Grind. Share a little bit about what is new with you.
Yes, so I'm working with a team called Thallium. I know some of the people from back in 1998, and we are focusing on seeing how we can help businesses implement AI and improve their processes. But it starts with the foundation, sort of what it is, how it works, and then finding those use cases that really helps a company to save time here and save time there, and then to take that. And then when that happens, you often maybe want some, to build some products and so on. So then of course we also help to code things, but we focus on that training and explaining. And when everybody around us uses these tools, it makes it also easier to you become a better buyer, or so.
To be able to do that. So if people want to reach out to you, what's the best way for them to contact?
LinkedIn is the best ways, but just to write that you watched this interview and say, I saw you on Startup Grind and happy to connect.
Okay, that sounds great. Jens, thank you so much. As always, it's always a pleasure to see you and to be with you, and to have the opportunity to pull from it seems like every time there's a topic that's related to business and technology, I know I can always count on you to give an up-to-date. You're going to give me current information on if you don't know exactly where it is, you absolutely know where to direct me and allow me to direct others to where to get that information. So thank you very much. This has been informative. This has been great. And I think that we are complete. And I just want to say thank you so much for joining us on Startup Grind, Capital Region, New York. We have been talking to Jens Wernborg, and the chapter director for Hong Kong and for Sweden. And we say thank you very much. And we'll say sign off for now.
Thank you.